You clicked on incognito mode, thinking your browsing was private. Google lets you believe that lie for years while silently harvesting your data. And they just got caught. Recently, Google agreed to destroy billions of data records as a part of a massive privacy settlement. But here's what really happened behind closed doors, and why this should terrify anyone who's ever used Chrome. Let's talk about the biggest privacy scandal that Google hoped you'd never fully understand. The case was filed in 2020 and alleged that Google surreptitiously collected data from people using Chrome's private incognito browsing mode. 3 regular people, William Byatt from Florida, and Chiasson Brown and Maria Nguyen from California, decided they'd had enough and took Google to court. The class action lawsuit alleged that Google spied on people who use the incognito mode in its Chrome browser, as well as similar private modes in other browsers, to track their internet use. The kicker? Plaintiffs originally asked for $5 billion in damages. Now you might be thinking, what's the big deal? Don't websites track you anyway? Here's where it gets dark. For years, Google simply informed users of Chrome's browser that they've gone incognito, and now they can browse privately when the supposedly untraceable browsing option is turned on, without saying what bits of data the company was harvesting. But behind the scenes, Google's advertising technology and other tools used by websites continued to scoop up user data even when people thought they were browsing privately. Think about what you've searched in incognito mode. Medical conditions you didn't want anyone knowing about, financial troubles, personal relationship issues. According to the lawsuit, the tech giant continued scraping searches by hoovering up data about users who browsed in incognito mode through advertising tools used by websites, grabbing potentially embarrassing searches of millions of people. Here's where this story goes, from concerning to absolutely damning. Internal emails from Google executives, emails that were revealed during the lawsuit, showed that people inside Google knew exactly what was happening. An email from Google's marketing chief, Lorraine Tu Hill, to CEO Sundar Pichai suggested the company was misleading the public about the browsing tool. And here's what she wrote, and I quote, "We are limited in how strongly we can market incognito because it's not truly private, thus requiring really fuzzy hedging language that is almost more damaging." Read that again. Google's own marketing chief admitted to the CEO that incognito mode wasn't truly private. They knew. And they chose fuzzy hedging language instead of telling you the truth. But it gets worse. Another Google employee recommended changing the incognito splash page to say, "You are not protected from Google." That's a Google employee, someone working inside the company, acknowledging that the feature designed to protect privacy doesn't actually protect you from Google itself. The internal Google emails brought forward in the lawsuit demonstrated that users in incognito mode were being followed for measuring web traffic and selling ads. So while you thought you were browsing privately, Google was tracking your every move to make money off advertising. The lawsuit's language was brutal and accurate. Google has made itself an unaccountable trove of information, so detailed and expansive that George Orwell could never have dreamed it. So, what exactly was Google collecting? The lawsuit claimed Google collected information like your IP address, device data, and even browser history, despite incognito mode seemingly offering a private browsing experience. Let's break down what this means in practical terms. Your IP address reveals your location and can be used to identify you. Device data includes information about what phone or computer you're using. And browser history? That's every single website you visited while thinking you were protected. Google tools used by websites, such as advertising technology, continued to scoop up user data anyway, even in incognito mode. This includes Google Analytics and Ad Manager, services that millions of websites use. So even if you weren't directly on Google's search engine, if a website you visited used Google's tools, your data was being collected. According to research, Google Chrome collects 20 different types of user data across various categories, making it the most data-hungry browser available today. Google tried to defend itself. In their argument, they warned users that websites might track them. Google claimed it warned users about websites potentially tracking user activity in order to dismiss the lawsuit. But here's why that defense didn't work. A judge ruled that Google never explicitly told users it was tracking them and collecting information. And if users weren't aware, they couldn't consent to data collection. That's the legal bombshell right there. You can't consent to something if nobody told you it was happening. The judge saw through Google's carefully crafted language and ruled that mentioning other parties might track you isn't the same as admitting that Google itself was doing the tracking. U.S. and District Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers ruled that Google's motion hinges on the idea that plaintiffs consented to Google collecting their data while they were browsing in private mode. Because Google never explicitly told users that it does so, the court cannot find as a matter of law that users explicitly consented to the ad issue data collection. So, what happened after years of legal battles? Google agreed to settle in December of 2023, and details were made public in April 2024 when the company agreed to expunge billions of data records that reflect people's private browsing. Billions! Let that sink in. Billions of records of your supposedly private activity. Google also said it made several changes to its disclosures to clarify how people's data is collected, as well as what activity is visible to websites when users browse in incognito mode. In other words, they're finally being honest about what incognito mode actually does and doesn't do. But here's the controversial part. While the plaintiffs asked for $5 billion in damages, the settlement includes no payment from Google, $0 to the class as a whole. Instead, individuals are able to sue Google in California state court to recover money over the covert data tracking. Plaintiffs' counsel has already filed new claims on behalf of over 1,000 individual users in California state courts. With more on the way, Google's spokesperson tried to spin this as no big deal, saying, "We are happy to delete old technical data that was never associated with an individual and was never used for any form of personalization." But if the data was never used and never associated with individuals, why were they collecting it in the first place? And why did they fight so hard to avoid deleting it? This incognito scandal is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Chrome's data collection practices. Chrome has become the dominant browser, with 65% market share on desktop and 60% on mobile, according to Cloudflare reports in 2025. That kind of dominance gives Google unprecedented access to what billions of people do online, and they've been using it. Remember Google's Privacy Sandbox initiative? It was supposed to make browsing more private by eliminating third-party cookies. But in a shocking reversal, in late 2024, Google canceled its initiative to remove third-party cookies from Chrome and instead announced plans for a user prompt to give users some control. Then, as of April 2025, that plan has also been abandoned. Users won't see a prompt to choose whether or not to allow third-party tracking cookies. According to the Center for Democracy and Technology, users of Chrome will continue to be tracked, profiled, and targeted in invasive ways that they may not understand and likely won't be able to control. Why did Google abandon these privacy improvements? Follow the money. Google's advertising business generated $237.86 billion in revenue, and data collection is the fuel that powers that engine. The incognito lawsuit wasn't Google's only privacy problem. In August 2024, the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco revived a class action lawsuit accusing Google of collecting personal data from Chrome users without their explicit consent. Even more recently, technical evidence at trial showed Google allegedly kept collecting data even when the web and app activity setting was disabled in account preferences. Users thought turning it off would stop data collection. They were wrong. Google pulled information from third-party applications like Uber, Venmo, and Instagram through tracking mechanisms that ignored user-configured privacy controls. Think about that. Even when you explicitly told Google not to track you through your account settings, they kept doing it anyway. And it's not just Google's own tools doing the tracking. Recent research found that 287 Chrome extensions have been leaking user data. These extensions, which millions of people install thinking they're helpful tools, have been harvesting browsing history and sending it to data brokers. So what does all of this mean if you're a regular Chrome user? First, understand what incognito mode actually does. It prevents your browsing history from being saved on your local device. That's it. It doesn't make you invisible online. Websites can still track you. Your internet provider can see what sites you visit. And as we now know definitively, Google can and does collect data about your incognito browsing. Second, realize the scale of data collection happening. Every website you visit, every search you make, every ad you see, all of this creates a detailed profile of who you are, what you care about, what you're afraid of, what you're interested in buying, your political views, your health concerns, everything. The original complaint alleged that Google and its employees had been given the power to learn intimate details about individuals' lives, interests, and internet usage. That's not hyperbole, it's what actually happened. Third, understand that this is about more than just seeing targeted ads. This data can be demanded by law enforcement, subpoenaed in lawsuits, potentially exposed in data breaches, or used in ways we haven't even imagined yet. If you want to actually browse privately, you need to use tools specifically designed for privacy, like the Tor browser, or at a minimum, a VPN combined with privacy-focused browsers like Firefox with strict privacy settings, or Brave. You should also regularly review and delete your Google activity. Go to your Google account, find data and privacy, and delete your web and app activity. Though, as we've learned, even that might not be enough to stop all data collection. The biggest lesson from all of this? Don't trust companies to protect your privacy out of the goodness of their hearts. When a company's entire business model depends on collecting and monetizing your data, they will push the boundaries of what's acceptable until they get caught. Google got caught. They're being forced to delete billions of records and update their disclosures, but the fundamental issue remains: the world's most popular browser is operated by a company whose primary business is data collection and advertising. The incognito mode scandal revealed something we should have known all along. When you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And your data, your private searches, your browsing history, your digital life, that's what they're selling. Google finally admitted what was happening. They're deleting the evidence and updating their disclaimers. But the question remains: what are they still collecting that we don't know about yet? If this video opened your eyes to what's really happening with your data, hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to know. Because the only way these companies change is when enough of us demand it. Your privacy matters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.